So because when I saw that, I was like, what's going on?
Harris subs in for quarter point. We have your digs all the time. So if Diggs is going to play the whole game, that could very well be.
I'm just waiting for the Eagles to start trading.
Yeah. It's not, I mean, it's not
one of the oldest teams in the league. They played their all the team that got destroyed. So. Now they got the Bills, which is really weird. I'm expecting Jim Kelly to be 100% over. It's been so long since they've been relevant.
I'm working on it. Okay, we'll call this meeting to order. I will rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're not ready? Okay. All right. Motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Romano, supported by Leonetti. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Approval of the minutes dated October 21st, 2019. Moved by Sauger, supported by Kraft. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Budget reviews. Clerk's office and Register of Deeds. Who do we have here? Hello, Fred.
Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thanks for having us today. I have a presentation here. How do we get it on? Oh, okay. So it's great to be here with you all. Thanks. We have a short presentation we'll go through, and then look forward to your questions. But I really, the most important thing I want to say is that you guys, as leaders of the county, really have so much to be proud of in terms of the quality of people that we have that work in this county. I mean, I'm impressed every single day with the professionalism, the dedication that they bring to the office every single day to serve the public. A lot of them, they're all very, very talented people. They show an uncommon level of camaraderie. They work with each other. They shift resources to help people who are struggling. They train each other up. And honestly, I couldn't be more proud of the caliber of people that we have working for us. So that's a testament to you all as leaders, and really just always think we should reiterate how great a team that we have here at Macomb County. Headline, of course, in our office is Chief Deputy Clerk Sheila Miller and Chief Deputy Register of Deeds Brian Burdak, who do a great job. If we're able to find any measure of success at our office, it's certainly because of their leadership and their talent that they bring to the organization. And then we also have our Chief Operations Clerk and longtime employee Rick Strobel, who many of you know worked at the Elections Department for a long time and filed a lot of our paperwork and whatnot. That only scratches the surface of what he does for the county. So I just want to say thanks to Rick and to Sheila and Brian for all that they do. So a quick overview of the Clerk and Register of Deeds. We're a 90-member team when we're fully staffed. The proposal before you for the general fund budget is $9.43 million for fiscal year 2020. As a quick review, we're 4 divisions in 3 different buildings. We're the court section in the courthouse on all 6 floors of the courthouse. That includes the jury room. We're the Vital Records Department, which is in the Talmer Building, 120 North Main. Our Register of Deeds, Vital Records is on there vitally twice, but one of those should be Register of Deeds, also at 120 North Main. And then our Elections Department is at the Clemens Center, which is 32 or 33 Market Street. I can't remember which one, but 32. And then we also are responsible, as you well know, for the Civil Service Process and Commission and the Remonumentation Program. So again, quick overview. August through July, we touched 105,000 total customer visits. This doesn't include all of our online traffic, and it doesn't include the 15,000 jurors I just found this out today. So if people are called, it's a fun fact you can share with your constituents. If they get called for jury duty, it's a 1 in 2 chance that they won't get called. So, but we love all the jurors that come through, and as we tell them every day when we talk to them, even if they're not called up, just by the fact that there's a jury impaneled there oftentimes brings the parties that are involved in a lawsuit to settlement. So it's an important part of it. Our elections department, we have currently 667 active campaign committees, and so as you all know, we're charged with the enforcement of the Campaign Finance Act, and so making sure that all the committees file timely reports and are compliant. Register of Deeds, we recorded 141,705 documents for the period from October through October 2018 to September 2019. We are right on time, right on pace to equal last year's 2019 to 2018, within like 100, which is like so a 0.1% deviation, for about 141,000 real estate filings. That's slightly down from 2 years ago, about 6% or so when we were at that 150,000 level for a long time. And then you go back to the early part of the 21st century when we were at 300,000. So we all remember, the cycles of our real estate here in Macomb County, but that story is really told through the Register of Deeds filings. And then as you know, more than $3.8 million in general fund revenues generated through these departments. And we're estimating about over $4 million for the budget that's in front of you for fiscal year 2020. Bear with me one moment. Here we go. Okay, so we love data, try to track everything and hold people accountable and to measure our progress. I'm really, really proud, and this is something that you all had a front row seat for during the chaotic period, but I'm really proud to report that our court section, all the e-filing that we get, the civil cases at the court, we have a 2 business day median turnaround for e-filing cases. We have a 2 business day median for our lien filings, which is, of course, any results that come through from judgments that have to go on to somebody's law enforcement record. 2 business days turn that around. And then a 1 business day median turnaround for abstractable entries, which is if there's a judgment that affects somebody's driving record, we have to report that to the Secretary of State. So we're proud that we have that down to a science. Really proud of this metric in terms of the customers that come in either at the Talmer Building at 120 North Main or at the court. This is just a random sampling of April of 2019 versus April of 2018. And you can see in all categories our customer wait times are down. And again, that's due to the dedication of our supervisors and our frontline employees who deliver service with a smile every day. And it's not always easy. I really want to kind of crow about this. When we came in, when our administration came in, phones, obviously people get information a lot of different ways. You get information online and other ways, but we do get a lot of phone calls still. And the phones would ring. There wasn't really a culture of actually answering the phone. And it's not because people neglect that, but it's because people are busy doing their other stuff, and that's just one more thing to do. So, we set that out as kind of an unacceptable condition and wanted to change it. So we worked closely with the IT department to implement the interactive voice response system, the IVR, and we really have seen an impressive culture change in our department, as evidenced by this slide here. The vital record staff, which is again is one of our highest traffic departments, such as marriage licenses, birth records, etc. But before we implemented this system, about half the time the phone would get answered. After hours, people couldn't leave a message. We implemented this technology, and now we're routinely above 90% of all the calls being answered every week, which is a huge feat. We shoot for 95% answered, and then anybody who doesn't answer, they can leave a message and they get a return response forthwith. So we're really also proud of our mobile clerk's office. Some rogue gallery here. Appreciate the commissioners participating and give an honorable mention to Commissioner Romano. We didn't have any photographic evidence of his appearance at the Sterling Heights mobile office, but he was there. So we want to say thanks to all those who supported us. And we get a lot of good feedback from citizens, and this is, again, something that you all should be proud of, and we're happy to partner with you all. And as you know, I've given you the schedule many times, and we welcome your participation in those to the extent that you want to. And so, again, recognizing that it's a big county, from all the way north to all the way south. Frankly, I'd never had experience representing such a geographically diverse area, and so really trying to work hard to get to our communities in the north end, because just because someone is not close to the county seat doesn't mean that that shouldn't be an obstacle for them receiving great public service. So that's part of what the mobile clerk's office is about, but I want to show you this slide. Go ahead, Rick, order this up. So this is kind of a snapshot of different things that we're doing around the county to try and show that that we do recognize that the north end, the south end, and everywhere in between all deserve excellent services. So that's just a snapshot of where we're at. Thanks, Rick, for putting together that slide, and thank you for the whole team for their sweat equity to make that possible. So in terms of looking forward into the future, I've been before you many times to talk about our challenges with our platform. You guys helped us consider the process and put forward the RFP and went through that whole process. I did have a full head of hair before that process started, and now it's stressful migrating 8 million images from one platform to another. But that's going, and that's going to take up a lot of our time to implement that solution. But I do believe on the other side of that, it's going to be a huge boon for customer service, for availability of data for customers, and for our internal workflow and keeping people accountable and working efficiently. So as part of the budget, there are 3 office assistant seniors that are fully funded by the tech fund, so it doesn't have any impact on the general fund. And we appreciate your consideration for that, and appreciate our partners in finance for recommending it. An ongoing project that does that does take a lot of time is our continued cross-training, trying to get people as much of a broad experience within their department and other departments under our umbrella. It just makes sense, but just getting there it's difficult, and it takes time. And one thing that we noticed when we came in, that all the what we call notes, or basically our job manuals, were all out of date, and even more of an urgent concern, they exist on somebody's computer, on their hard drive. They exist in a shared folder that nobody else knows about, or there's written notes somewhere. And what we've tried to instill in our organization is that when we win the lottery, when anybody wins the lottery and they go to their private island tomorrow, what are you going to turn over to your successor to say, this is how you do the job, to make sure that the customer doesn't have any interruption in service? And so I want to give a shout out to Rick for helping quarterback this, but we have an intranet platform we call Clerk's Corner, where we take all these notes, any kind of resources that people need, and as opposed to putting them on the shared drive where they could go to any different computer or be lost or whatever, have one spot. It's a platform that allows people to comment on it if they have questions, and we can respond to the comments. We can edit it accordingly, and it's really a sea change in terms of efficient delivery of services and making sure that we have a solid organization. So that's an ongoing project. Again, jury room, we have about 15,000 people that come through. If you've been there, we have these beautiful smart screen TVs. And I will say that every time I speak to the jurors, which is 3 times a week, I always give credit to the Board of Commissioners for investing in a new jury room with the seating and the wireless internet and the charging stations. And I always ask a show of hands of who had served recently in the past in the Danker jury room on the 3rd or 4th floor, and always get a nod of heads. People had that experience and recognize that the investment that went in there. So we try to point that out. But anyway, we have these big screens we use for the juror instruction videos, and it's linked up to the mic, so when you're speaking, the jurors can look at you even if they're behind one of the pillars. But we're implementing a trivia contest, so people are in there for maybe 6 hours if they don't get called early on and they have to come back for the afternoon. and sometimes it does get boring. So we're implementing this rolling trivia contest to kind of engage them, and it's going to have information about county services, about Macomb County history, about all kinds of stuff, just to kind of give people some brain candy while they sit there waiting to get called. So we're excited about that. And then lastly, I really want to thank you for your partnership with our I Voted sticker design contest. The thought is based on an experience I had in Oakland County during my tenure there, but the treasurer there had the financial literacy art contest to kind of engage students to think about themes of financial literacy. Similarly, we started this contest to get students to think about their civic responsibility and the importance of voting. And so, like my tie here, we all get the I Voted stickers that are after we vote or go to the polls or whatnot. And our idea is to have an I Voted sticker, to have students design it, get students from all over the area, and then have a contest and award it, and then have a Macomb County specific I Voted sticker that we would partner with our local clerks and provide to them. So that was part of a proposal that I had that we came up short with in terms of funding. So I am seeking additional funding. Had a good chat with Chair Smith about it, and I know that you have a lot of tough decisions to make, but would happy to talk about that with you more if you'd like. So appreciate your consideration. And that's the end of my presentation, and look forward to your questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, and can you send that presentation over, because I don't think we have it. Thank you. Commissioners, before I start calling names, we have budgets on C19, 20, 27, 42, D 16, 17, 18, and also 56 and C. Do you guys want to do these one at a time or just ask about any particular one? It doesn't matter to me. Any particular one? All right, Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Fred, for your presentation. And I certainly concur with the quality of the staff. It wouldn't, thankfully, it goes back, for a number of years. Every time I've gone to the clerk's office, whether I've been a commissioner or a citizen, it's been treated exceptionally well and professionally. So we're very fortunate here in Macomb County. Just a quick question on one of the figures you cited, and I just want to make sure I understand it. You said we, recorded 141,705 documents, in a year period, and you had mentioned that that's down from a high of like 300,000 or so documents in a previous some years back. Is that just real estate documents, or is that like marriage in all types of documents?
It's mortgages, liens, quitclaim deeds, warranty deeds. We have about 20, 30 different kinds of documents that we receive. Yeah,
so that was during the housing boom.
Come on over here.
Yeah, so that numbers that were cited, are those almost all housing related, or I'm sure our marriage and other documents?
Yeah, the marriage documents are not part of that number. It's all related to Register of Deeds recordings, but it also includes mortgage assignments. Yeah. So when interest rates are low, people are refinancing, that counts as a document being filed at our office, and we get thousands of those a month electronically that are done by mortgage companies.
So the Register of Deeds and so forth isn't dealing necessarily specifically with. They deal with the marriage stuff too, though, right?
That's over in Vital Records.
Vital Records, gotcha.
We're in the same building now, but the statistics that he was showing up there were the 141. That's just Register of Deeds.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and we refer to the that's the Vital Records section that handles the marriages and stuff. But to your point, and because I think data really tells the story, if you go back to 2002, 308,584 documents were filed. That's as far back as they recorded it. We hit our peak in 2003, 389,000 plus documents were filed, and then we dipped down to the 200s, and then 2009 we bottomed out at 139. So it just shows and while Brian said there's a whole variety of different instruments that are filed with the Register of Deeds, they're not all just purchases or transfers. Some of them are refis and stuff, but it shows the level of activity in the real estate market. And so we went from 308 to 139, and we kind of springboarded back. 2013 was our last peak at 187,000. And now we're on par to be at 141, which is the same as we were last year.
Okay, I'm just trying to get a big picture from just the Registry of Deeds perspective. How many documents, which appear to have generally been trending down, to, at least from the peak, obviously, but also the expenditures are, of course, generally trending up. as are the, although at a much lower level, the staffing levels, which is just nominally up. So I'm just trying to get those pictures in my head. But thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can I get a receive and file? Moved by Brown, supported by Gillette. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Fred. You know, mine are mostly some statements, but when I heard that 141,000 documents, if you really stop and think about it, I mean, all those, and I'm sure the plus or minus error is very, very, very minimal, because if it was maximum, we would hear about it down here immediately. We'd hear it as county commissioners. But he had mentioned something about the mobile office, which is not something new. I mean, it was done before him, but the difference being it was done sporadically. And I can only speak for what I've seen Fred come down with his crew to the city of Sterling Heights for their, I think they had a senior medical conference type thing, and then they had just a senior center itself he came down to. And it was received so graciously, the fact that when people say to your constituents, well, you got to go to the county to do that. That's a big entity. What does that mean? Go to the county? I got to go downtown someplace? But he make it so simple when he comes to you, when I say to you, to your districts and to your senior centers, that the people truly, truly appreciate it. It makes it very simple. In my case, I don't want to even go percentage-wise, but I know it's over 50% seniors in my district in Sterling Heights. That's what got me elected. But anyway, the point is, they don't want to go through all this stuff. They don't want to drive downtown. They don't want to park downtown. They don't want to wander through the offices trying to figure out what's going on. And Fred, honestly, kudos to you, because you made it very simple for them. This trivia thing that you've had for the jurors, and I don't know about the other commissioners, but every once in a while I get a call from a constituent, do I really have to serve on my friend served and he sat for 4 hours and picked his nose because there was nothing to do and he was never called. What a great idea. I compliment you for it. I commend you for it. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
I got called on the only trial that was that they seated a jury that week. I sat there and watched 500 people walk out the door. I was like, oh, I'll never get called. Bam. Commissioner Duge.
Serves you right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Fred. It's nice to see the clerk's office returning to normalcy. We'll put it that way. That's number one. Two, and I talked with Rick earlier. I don't know why, but I've got it stuck with the remonumentation business. In this day and age, it's like the horse and buggy or a buggy whip to have remonumentation. Is that ever going to end? or by the time we're done with this go around, we'll start at number one again.
I mean, the thought is it would end at some point.
Come on up here. Come on up here.
My understanding is that many of the counties that have finished are going back where they started and, reassessing where things are at. And so, I mean, personally, I would direct those kind of questions to your state reps, because they're the ones that are funding the program. If we don't take advantage of marking those markers, we lose the money and someone else gets it.
I understand that, but in this day and age, we have GPS, we have all this other stuff, and it just makes no sense to me to have somebody walking off X amount of paces from this and that, and then putting a rock there or something. Yeah. It just doesn't.
I will say, come out and see it, because it's pretty cool to watch these guys do this stuff, especially the ones that involve corners in the lake and the properties along the water and figuring out.
It's got to be nuts, but
it is.
After everything's said and done, it just this seems like something that we can do a lot better without having all of this nonsense involved. Other than that, keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just to put it in context, I mean, the remonumentation is the foundation of all property ownership. Every description of private property is based on these monuments, and so it's for whatever reason the state recognized that there was work that needed to be done there, and surveying and engineering is as dry as toast. But the underpinning of it is really private property rights. And to the extent that we can guarantee that legal claims and that private property can be guaranteed, I mean, that's one of the foundational responsibilities of government. And while we've had many discussions about it here, but it'll put you to sleep. However, to put it in context, it's one of the primary things of government is to protect private property, and that's what at the spirit of it, what the remonumentation program is about. To reiterate what Brian said, I would love to have you come out and see what we're doing. I won't even go into detail, but we're partnering with the GIS program at planning to make this data available and overlay it with existing county data for the first time ever, so that this will actually be hopefully more useful, and not just useful to surveyors in a silo somewhere, but that will actually be available to our easier to our roads, to public works, to developers, and all that. So it's admittedly, your point is well taken. It's dry, and it's like, why are we doing this? But there are really cool applications for this kind of stuff.
There very well could be, but we're spending $250,000 on it a year, and this is going to go on forever. It makes no sense to me. But that being said, I understand the realities of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I think this is what we talk about at the table. Commissioner Duge isn't saying it shouldn't be done. He's saying technologically, haven't we advanced from the way that we are doing it? And that's what the question has been at this table, not whether or not it should be done, or, that we keep on top of it. Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fred, first let me say to you and your staff, congratulations. You guys took total chaos and turned it into a well-oiled, well-performing machine. So congratulations on that. There was comments mentioned about the portable mobile clerk's office, you seeking out PAC violators. What an innovative, creative idea, with you and the treasurer as well. The new filing protocols by the state, where we're all filing campaign finance statements now, whether we're on the ballot or not, and the enhanced service you guys provide. I'm fortunate to have a elected clerk in the family, having, I don't want to say stolen, but having acquired one of your former employees. All they do is rave about the service of your office whenever they come in there. Things run as smooth as they've ever been involved with before. So, and looking at your budget, we talked about it earlier. Your revenues are up plus $100,000 for the clerk's office, and your expenditures are only up $10,000. So if we can get every department in Macomb County to meet that criteria, we'll be in great shape. So congratulations to you, buddy. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'll pass it on to the staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
Hi, Fred. First, let me start with this. Jim Carabelli couldn't make it here today, and he had a question regarding one of your programs and whether or not it could be actually taken out of the tech fund. And I know Crystal spoke with him a few times. Can you, Crystal, ask for Jim on that question about the tech fund? Would you please? Sure. It would come out a lot more clearly if she asked you the question than if I did.
It was a project on the capital plan for the tract index. He had asked when they presented that if you could use the technology fund to pay for that, and I think he had asked Steve Smeagol when he was presenting that, and he wasn't sure. So he wanted to ask you that today.
Which project was it?
For the tract index.
Oh, absolutely. That is a that is one that we would that could potentially be paid for out of the tech fund. Yeah.
Okay.
But that is. We have more than enough on our plate right now with our migration to our new platform. So that's the next big thing. Yeah, it's something that could be considered. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the tech fund is set by statute. It's supposed to be used. It's called the technology fund because it's supposed to only be used to make these real estate documents more available to the public and make it searcher friendly, so it's more searchable. So paying for the migration to the new Tyler platform gives us more robust search engine, again, making it more available. The tract index, if we were able to bring that project to fruition, would be about, indexing and tagging with the property numbers with all these parcels. And it would definitely be something that we could, it would be using technology to make the information more accessible to the public, so yes.
So, in other words, yes? Sorry. That's funny. So let me just explain a little bit, because a lot of the commissioners aren't aware of the fact that we've been talking with the Green Schools program and the sticker program, and how we've been talking about working together is, since it's an allowable green school program, the sticker, the contest, I've had you working with Patty to integrate the conduit to all the green school programs, so you would have an automatic in to all these schools to get with all the students. So that's where we've been working together so far on this, trying to find some funding. And I think you mentioned a tune of maybe $20,000 at the end of the day to get these stickers printed up. We're still talking about seeing if we can find something to do, some kind of money to find that to program or to actual get that done for you. So the last thing is we would all love to see all the departments come in with more revenue than expenses, but unfortunately you guys are one of the few, I'd say, departments that really has a big revenue generating ability, right? A lot of the departments just don't have the ability to generate the revenue. So, but we appreciate what you're doing, Fred, and I hear nothing but good things about the clerk's office also. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Here to make a statement with his shirt is Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Nice jacket. Fred, take a break. Steve, I got a question for you. Sorry, Steve. So I'm going back and forth between the county clerk page and the elections department page, and I see last year the county clerk was at 62 employees, and then 2020 it's 58, and then I see in the elections department the addition of 4 employees. Is that where those 4? I'm glad that's your answer, because it leads me to my next question. So from 2019 amended to 2020 recommended, the personnel budget in the county clerk's fund only goes down by $3,100. But if you go to the elections department, the personnel cost is $282,000. Why is that?
Because there were costs added as part of the compensation and classification study, and then we moved $282,000.
And Steve, would you turn your microphone on?
Sorry. So there were costs associated with the settlement of the bargaining agreements. So those would have increased the budget had we not transferred those 4 positions to the elections department.
Gotcha.
So costs went up and then costs went down.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you, Steve. And Fred, one question for you on Rick's little flash map as we went along. The educational events, are those to educate the folks on the Proposal 3 changes, or can you describe that a little bit?
We do a lot of education about Prop 3. Those, for the purposes of that slide, were the voter registration, because usually we're educating and registering at the same time. The educational one was specifically school outreach. So we did, like most recently, I partnered with the MISD to do their distance learning. So they set me up in a studio in the MISD office in Clinton Township, and we were able to be linked to the classrooms in Romeo, in New Baltimore, and Harrison Township, and Utica to talk about the book that we read was called One Vote by Ben Carson, and so we talked about that and the themes with the students, and it was really an enjoyable experience.
Thank you. Thanks for all you're doing. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Sauger, Commissioner Sauger, Commissioner Sauger, and Commissioner Sauger.
Fred, I just want to tell you that I really am impressed with your Elections Bureau. You found all the people in there, and it's been going on for years, who got great personalities. You go in there, in and out, and there's no hesitant. They know what they're doing. So congratulations on them. The other one is I heard people who got called to be jurists. And once they got in there, they said, well, I'd like to become a jurist again. Because of what they do, they don't realize until they get in that room, and if they're called to be a jurist, what they got to do. But anyway, it's very impressive. So great job. And like my buddy on the left here said, what a difference in county clerks. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that. I will say, if you see him around, Judge Toya, he, more than any of the other judges, comes down and talks to the jurors, and he does an absolutely fantastic job talking to them about the context of jury service. And this isn't just a pain in the neck and an interruption in your daily life, but it's important. And he does a really, really great job of educating the jurors. So if you see Judge Toya, tell him he does a good job.
Thank you. I don't see any other commissioners wanting to speak. Please vote. Motion passes 11-0. Thank you, Fred. Treasurer's Office. Is it? And I think I always say it wrong. Is it Chief Deputy Treasurer Biondo? I always get it wrong. I'm sorry. You're not the only one. Sorry about that.
Hello, Commissioners. Joe Biondo, Chief Deputy to our County Treasurer, Larry Rocca. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss the budget that Treasurer Rocca directed to be submitted for your review. It is a budget that amounts to $2.98 million, and what we'll be able to achieve with this budget is what we've been achieving each year in the Treasurer's Office with the team that's in place, that Treasurer Rocca has put in place, which is quite frankly to excel at our core functions. Primarily as the custodian of county funds, we handle the investments on behalf of the treasurer or on behalf of the county as a whole, and while it's not reflected in our budget, I think it's relevant to raise the point that when you look back in 2016, the baseline year, as far as total investment income across all county funds, that was at $1.3 million in 2016. 2017, we got that up to $2.3 million. 2018, we got that up to $4.1 million. This year, we're on track to making more than we did last year. And heading into a declining interest rate environment, we're obviously cognizant of the fact that in absolute numbers, that might not continue as much as we like that trend to continue. But what we will continue to do is hit our core objective of maximizing investment income while minimizing risk in the environment that we're facing. Something that we're also proud of is, quite frankly, our second core function, handling the tax foreclosure process on behalf of the county. Each year, we've been able to increase the number of payment plans to help people stay in their homes here. If you go to page 2 of the budget review supplemental, I have that broken down as well. In 2016, we had 615 payment plans. We got that up to 673 in 2017, 775 in 2018, and 783 this year. And our expectation is to continue to increase the number of payment plans heading into next year. At the same time, the number of tax foreclosure properties have been decreasing as a result of that and as a result of the improving economy for the most part. And what I want to highlight as far as the recommended budget one-page executive summary is really the bank vault. We had a chance to talk about it in the workshop, but for the benefit of the other commissioners, our vault is quite old. In fact, we brought it over from when the Treasurer's Office was in the old county building, long before my time. And we had an issue early in the year with the time locks breaking down, which we, of course, had repaired, but our service technician indicated that the next time he had to make a service call, he might not be able to guarantee having those parts because of them being so antiquated. So in order to avoid that pitfall, we looked at different costs at that. You know, you can go, quite frankly, as high as you want in terms of costs as far as a vault, but we're confident that we can find a vault that meets the county's needs at under $25,000. I'll be happy to report back once we get a final number on that with the assistance of the purchasing department. We have a great staff in the Treasurer's office. It really is a bottom-up management approach with Treasurer Rocca leading the way, focusing the staff's efforts on, again, maximizing investment income so that, quite frankly, we have more money to work with without having to ask the taxpayers for more money. And we're proud of what we've been doing. This year, for the first time, we tried an in-district event in the city of Warren, which is the #1 local unit of government in terms of tax foreclosures, to try to increase the number of payment plans there. That's something we anticipate on doing next year as well. Furthermore, Treasurer Rocca was the first to implement the ability to accept credit card payments at the county. And we're working on, as you all know, rolling out a countywide credit card processing system that's tailored to each specific department. And we've had a lot of work towards that goal in conjunction with assistance from our IT department, and it's going in the right direction. And beyond that, again, we're just focused on our core functions and as much as possible putting transparency in everything we do. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
I don't have a motion, do I? Okay, moved by Leonetti, supported by Brown. Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Joe, I want to commend you and Larry as well. Your revenues are up and your expenditures are minimally increased, so that makes us 2 for 2. So that makes it a little difficult for the prosecutor coming up next to make it 3 for 3. But the investment numbers that you quoted, I'm just saying this for the commissioner's knowledge, Joe and Larry sit on no less than 5 to 7 retirement board meetings per month. So they hear the dialogue, who's investing in what, whose money being taken away from and given to. And Joe doesn't have to be there, but he is there at each one of these meetings. So I commend you guys on the great job that you're doing as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Smith.
Thank you. Hi, Joe.
Sir.
I have a question regarding the tax revolving fund. That was, that's this big pot of money that you guys have, obviously, for emergency. Do you have the balance on that, or do you know generally what the balance is now? I know it was in the 110 million or something last year.
It obviously fluctuates throughout the year. Right now, it's at about 100 million.
Okay. So I just have a question as to we've loaned money out of that to the Department of Public Works temporarily for the sinkhole. There was another request for a road loan to come out of there that ended up getting pulled. But what's the parameters on that? We've done it before. Sometimes it's doable, sometimes it isn't. What's the parameters of actually loaning money, and is it all Larry, Treasurer Rocca's decision on whether to do that or not? And can you tell me how that works?
So to just back up a second, if you may recall, when the issue happened with the sinkhole, what that was the $8 million surplus that was declared was moved over to the general fund, and the county.
Okay, so that's the surplus that you normally give to the counties.
The general fund money is the one that made the loan directly to the in regards to that public works issue with the sinkhole.
Okay.
Generally speaking, it's of course the treasurer's responsibility to maintain the DTR fund per the state law and the ordinance that a prior Board of Commissioners had authorized to set up this fund. This fund is designed to allow the county to purchase the delinquent taxes from the local units. Previously, the local units, if they weren't paid on time, it would have taken up possibly 3 years for them to finally be able to collect on that money. It's quite interesting as far as the legislative history, and I probably wouldn't be able to do it justice off the top of my mind, and I'd be happy to have that conversation in the future. But generally speaking, the treasurer looks at the DTR fund, makes sure that the fund is able to fill its role of allowing the county to purchase all delinquencies in a given year without having to bond out. As you may recall, back in 2008, 2009, in the aftermath of the financial crisis and all of that, the county had to pay out about, I believe, $90 to $100 million to purchase the delinquencies. So that's what the purpose of that fund is. In addition to that, we in Macomb County have been able to also use it as a tool to, quite frankly, help out the general fund each year to the tune of $8 million. And that's a surplus that the treasurer declares each year, working with the finance department, which in turn incorporates it into the budget that gets proposed each year. So that's really the process. Do we have enough money for when something bad happens like 2008, 2009 to purchase the delinquencies without bonding out? And also, are we able to basically maintain it in a way where we can deliver $8 million each year to you guys so that, you know, if money were to be unnecessarily pulled out, we avoid the hassle or the issue of, you know, what we do if we can only do a $6 million surplus and you guys have all of a sudden a $2 million hole in the budget each year going forward. So those are sort of the rough contours of what's involved there. And I'd be happy to talk to you at length more about it if you have any further questions. And Frank Krisha is a resident expert on that, and I would defer to him on the details on that.
Okay. The main question I had is I don't know if there's parameters as far as, I know that we were looking at loaning it to the road department, $20 million at one point. And I know that it was just pulled for other reasons. It wasn't that it was an unacceptable use of that money as far as a loan. I know that if you loan money out, you can get it back at the interest rate that you were making in the fund itself. I don't know, I just didn't know what the legal parameters are if the treasurer ever decided to allow that money to be loaned out for different things in the county, if there's any real restriction on it, or basically the restriction would be up to you guys to decide if it was a good use of funds or not.
I know initially regarding the roads funding issue, if it's something that the board and the exec present as a something that they want to explore, we'd be happy to do that. I know there were some discussions as to doing it with the roads. That of course never went through, but it's something that I would defer to expert legal opinion on the DTR fund on how to specifically do something like that, because quite frankly, it's never been done in the county, as far as I know, as far as a loan from the DTR fund to a county department.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Joe, for the presentation. Mine's a general question about delinquent taxes, I suppose. You know, in the last year, I've heard two different major stories coming out in Michigan about delinquent tax issues. One involved Oakland County and some other areas where some individual property property owners were having their property taken away for very minimal amounts of owed taxes, and then the county would sell the property and keep all the proceeds. So some people were losing their home because they owed $100 in back taxes and losing a $200,000 home and not getting any of it back. And I haven't heard those kind of stories coming out of Macomb, so I'm very happy to hear about that. And then on the Wayne County side, I understand that they're in the process of implementing some new programs to assist people who are having challenges, maintaining their property taxes and so forth. How is it that Macomb is managed to stay out of the news on the bad side of things? In other words, you're working out these plans and proposals. Are we, what policies have you guys enacted in a nutshell to avoid having to go to the extremes of whether Wayne County's having to completely redo a lot of their policies, or Oakland County's ending up in court over taking people's property over minuscule amounts?
If I may, I'd like to answer the second part of the question first. I read the news article in terms of what Wayne County is proposing to do. My understanding is that's all premised on them having some success in Lansing to change the state law, and we're kind of awaiting to see how that process plays out. With respect to the first point, I think you're referencing the story that happened in Oakland County regarding a gentleman who paid a substantial amount of delinquent taxes and it was less than $100 owing, and it got foreclosed on. I can't really speak to other counties, but what I can say is that we got a great team in the treasurer's office, and more importantly, the way we organize things and look at things, we have multiple layers so that things like that get caught. The last thing that Treasurer Rock or any of us in the treasurer's office would ever want to see is anybody in Macomb County get foreclosed on a nominal tax bill. We look out for that stuff. We do everything we can to avoid that. We do a lot of things above and beyond the bare requirements of state law to make contact with delinquent taxpayers. We send our tax collectors out to make, whatever amount of visits are necessary to not only communicate the fact that this person is going through tax foreclosure, but more importantly, get their foot in the door in the treasurer's office, sit down and work out a payment plan. It's something we take very seriously. It's the #1 priority to Treasurer Rocca to help folks keep Macomb their home. And so, we take it as a serious duty that we need to meet every day. And so far, our system that's been in place has worked, and each year we improve it. We look out for issues that come up, we fix them, and we move on. We had an issue this year where taxpayer came in way past the normal time to come in and work out a payment plan, but all of a sudden he was able to pay off all the taxes. And that was at the point where we already offered that property to the local unit to purchase. We explained to them the situation, and literally a week before they were set to purchase the property from the county, we allowed the gentleman to pay it in full. It's not like he got a free break, and these folks, we're giving them time, but they're paying what they're supposed to pay plus interest, so they're not getting a free ride. It's, quite frankly, how we think we should be treating our residents, and that's what we follow through on.
Well, there's a number of those sad stories coming out of Oakland County and other counties, and I think I appreciate most the fact of the stories we don't hear, about anything coming out of Macomb. It's quiet, and I think that talks to the effectiveness of the work that you're doing there in that regard.
We keep an eye on those lawsuits because they might impact us some way, if, depending on how they go. I know there's a class action lawsuit against a number of counties, not including Macomb County. I believe the Michigan Supreme Court's going to hand down their decision in February. And we're all, waiting to see what happens, but I like to think that the reason we're not included in that class action is because of the great job we do avoiding, these obvious things that should probably not even happen in the first place. For example, foreclosing on a guy's house for $100.
Yeah, I'm glad we don't hear those stories about Macomb, so thank you for that work.
Thank you, Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. The correct title is Chief Deputy Treasurer. Got it?
The rather peachy Commissioner Romano.
Oh, thank you. It's pink, not red. But anyway, a couple of things. First of all, to all of us, our money is safe. Between Commissioner Rocca and Mr. Biondo, I don't think Macomb County has to worry. And I urge all of you, if you have the opportunity, and just a few minutes, I'm sure Mr. Biondo will be more than happy to take you on tour of the Treasurer's office and show you just exactly the work they do. Talking about foreclosures, this is supposedly a good economy, but what happens in a bad economy? But and the stories that I heard from Commissioner Drolet and Mr. Biondo prove to the fact that people do lose their homes. But if any of you have noticed, Treasurer Rock has gone on TV to say, listen, contact us. You got a problem? We'll work it out. But that continual type of visual stimulation to people that are behind, they all have TVs, I'm sure, if they haven't been repossessed. But anyway, they all have TVs, and the idea that they can at least come down and talk about it. We can't consider every one of them and help but the majority of them are willing to sit down, set up a payment plan, and get it back. And that's great for us, because the more people that live in Macomb County, the more homes we have, the less problems we're going to have with these foreclosures. And again, I'm going back on my basis as a real estate broker for almost 50 years. In the bad times, we were picking up homes left and right for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Those same homes today are selling for $150,000 and $170,000. Unfortunately, those poor homeowners couldn't stay in their properties because they couldn't afford the payment, couldn't afford their taxes, or whatever the case may be. Taxes you got a problem with, come and see the Treasurer's office. And I think maybe keeping that in mind when we have these senior meetings at senior, and I'm sure all of us go to the senior complexes at one time or another, it's not a bad point to bring up to them, because sometimes people don't like to talk about it, or they're unaware of it, and that happens also. And as Mr. Biondo stated, not only do they send out literature saying to the people, listen, you got a problem, somebody's knocking on their door. And that, that makes a big impression. People say, well, I didn't know. Well, now you do know. Okay, I'll pay it. Let me know what I owe. just a good point. If you look at the employees or talk to the employees, and I have in the treasurer's office, and I attribute this to you, Mr. Biondo, and Treasurer Rocca, it's almost seamless there. Everybody does their job. They do a good job, and they're happy at doing it. So I commend both of you. Thank you. And your staff.
Thank you, absolutely. Without the staff, we wouldn't be nowhere. This is a team effort, and it's great to be a part of the team.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. One of my questions was going to be, were you following the court cases? Also, there's discussion in Lansing, legislation discussion, I know, and from what I've been able to gather, they would create more problems than solve problems, and they could put counties in a precarious position with the legislation they've been discussing. So are you watching that as well, or are you?
I am. We have a membership with the Michigan Association of County Treasurers, and we communicate with other county treasurers that are involved with these particular lawsuits that we're not, to know what's going on. They have a legal panel at the MAC conferences, and this is obviously the #1 issue that they're covering because of dramatic impact, especially with this class action lawsuit. I mean, I'm hearing from some of the northern counties, if this goes the wrong way, I mean, it could bankrupt some of the local units of government out there in the counties that rely on this. So it's a big deal.
Yes. Last week I had a meeting, we had a meeting at MAC with the Register of Deeds, the clerks, and the treasurers, and this was a pretty hot topic. So I'm glad that that's on your radar as well. That's all I had. I wanted to make sure both those things were on your radar. Commissioner Myjack.
Thank you for coming here, Joe. I just have a question. So right now, I guess your department and the whole county as a whole, we have a better economy now than we had probably since the mid-2000s. So I'm assuming, obviously, the foreclosures and issues that you deal with are at a lower level now than, say, 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So the people who don't pay taxes as of right now today in our economy, what's your typical homeowner person who has a difficulty paying this? Like, are they in the north end of the county, the south end? Is it a single person? Is it a family?
Primarily
minimum wage earners, or can you?
Primarily, it's in Warren, and it's individuals dealing with health issues preventing them from working, and quite frankly, not receiving, any other supplemental forms of income. Those are sort of the harder cases to work out, and sometimes the conversation with folks who can't necessarily make monthly payments is, we do a nominal amount each month, with the plan being that you put up the house for sale. That way you avoid the tax foreclosure, get a little bit of whatever equity you can get out of there, and maybe downsize into something that's more affordable. Those are probably a number of the ones we see. And, also people, even in this economy, do lose jobs, and they need time to get back on their feet, and that impacts things. And sometimes the property tax bill gets placed at the bottom of the bills that need to be paid. And so, when we meet with folks, it's just a question of, okay, what can we do to get you on the path to pay this off, so that, it's not a never-ending hamster wheel for you, because that's not something we want to see either. Before it gets to the point of foreclosure, they've already had 3 years, under the law. And then, if we do payment plans, if we have to do it for a couple of years, that's something we're willing to do. And we have tremendous success with the payment plans. Our compliance rate is anywhere between 90 to 95%, which is great, and something that we're proud of.
Very good. So, but I'm just curious, why in particular did you say Warren? I mean,
that's
Warren
just where the numbers are.
It's not like, Warren has 130,000 people, so just there's more people that live in Warren versus, say, East Point or something like that?
All I can say is that the number of tax foreclosures in the county, the #1 local unit of government that has these tax foreclosures are in the city of Warren.
So are you working with, what's her name, Lori Barnwell? Do you coordinate with their office a lot?
So we coordinate with all the treasurer's offices, you can imagine. We almost throughout the year at any given time, we're communicating with what we're doing. We were able to work out something with the mayor's office there to have an in-district event. That's something we want to do again, and to promote it again. We're geared to accept payments here in the treasurer's office. So it was a bit of an experiment to try to do it in the field, so to speak. But in light of the fact that that's the local unit where, for whatever reason, that's where the highest number of tax foreclosures are, that's where we're focusing on to hopefully address that issue as far as why is it, I guess, geographically distinct.
So let me ask you one final question. So next year, 2020, the two millages I am aware of that are going to be in the ballot is 1.9 mills for schools and 1.0 for jail, so that's about 3 mills. So you being deputy treasurer, what does that mean for those people? I mean, 3 mills is a lot of people for people who can't pay their taxes going back even 3 years. So
Yeah,
what are your thoughts or comments on that?
If those get implemented, we really won't see the results of that until 3 years down the road.
Right.
And as far as, you know, that compared to the rest of the property taxes, I don't know until I see the data, you know, what kind of impact that would have. And I would have to see that before I can even speculate as to what's going on there.
Very good. Thank you for coming here today.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, and I apologize. I meant to ask, where is the tax revolving fund in the budget?
So maybe that's a question for Steve or myself, but basically my understanding is that the DTR fund is held in a restricted account, and I'll let Steve explain it.
The delinquent tax fund is classified as a business type unit for accounting purposes. It's an enterprise fund. Enterprise funds are not required to be in the budget according to state law. General fund, special revenue funds. Capital projects funds and internal service funds are not required. In fact, the state...
Okay, so let's just remove the discussion on requirement and kind of have a discussion on, aren't we better off if we just have stuff in the budget so that folks can see it?
If you look at the financial statements, you can find them. I'm not going to argue that more people probably look at the budget than the annual audited financial statements, which are in there. I can't argue that it wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea.
Okay.
It's just that we don't want to put every fund in the budget.
It's a philosophical discussion for another day.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion to receive and file. Please vote.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Joe. Motion passes 11-0. Next, we have the prosecutor's office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Jim Lantry.
Close enough. Langtree.
I'm not good with names,
And
I'm
Chief
sorry.
Assistant. That's it. First, I'm going to answer Commissioner Howe's gauntlet about revenue. If you were to look at the fines collected by the clerk's office and the case filing fees, if it wasn't for our criminal prosecutions, those would be way down. So, basically, as far as our office is concerned this year, the most recent thing that you're going to see in the budget is we just got approved for a grant from the state of Michigan for our Victims' Rights Act, which is zero cost to the county, to approve over $600,000 that will go towards hiring additional victim advocates. It will go to helping pay restitution to victims on cases where defendants can't afford to pay restitution. And that was something we achieved at the last minute, and it's been put on the budget here. As far as our request, we're in a position where, unfortunately, because there aren't a lot of additional personnel being granted for obvious reasons, that we're essentially robbing Peter to pay Paul. And in this particular cycle, we're asking to reduce current Assistant Prosecuting Attorney 1 position to a part-time position, and also eliminate a part-time typist clerk to fund a full typist clerk. And the reason for that, and it's an additional cost of $4,000, and Finance has signed off on it, is that unfortunately, right now, having more support staff is more important than having prosecutors in our office. I hate to say it. We have discovery requirements that I'm sure Commissioner
Keep aware of the microphone. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Kleinfeld. That I'm sure Commissioner Leonetti, Commissioner Smith are well aware of, that we have reporting requirements, we have discovery requirements. There's time constraints placed on us by the State Court Administrator's Office and by the judges across the county. Just yesterday, we received 4 bankers' boxes of medical records. All of those have to be scanned. They have to be redacted from personal information, removing social security numbers, personal addresses, just to turn over to a defense attorney. When we're dealing with those volumes of those sheer volumes of documents on a case-by-case basis, and we have to turn those over on thumb drives and CDs and make sure that there's no personal information that's handed out, that requires additional support staff. And that is more important, unfortunately, right now than having APAs. And I'd love to stand up here and ask for additional APAs. We need them. But we need the support staff more. And so we had to sacrifice one of our APA positions, knock it down. It's vacant right now. Knock it down to a part-timer in turn for getting a full-time support staff that we can also add to our discovery department. One thing we know is that our cases are paramount. And the last thing we want to do is have a judge dismiss a case based upon the fact that we didn't comply with discovery. And we have people working on it nonstop. It's a thankless job. It's a redundant job, but it's important because there is liability attached, especially when we're talking about medical records, if they are released to people without them being redacted. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, to stand up here and say what our mission is, everybody knows what our mission is, and it's not a revenue-making agency. It's to ensure that we handle all the prosecutions in the county and to do a damn good job doing it. And the fact of the matter is that we have a lot of victims that call our office constantly to thank our staff, to thank Prosecutor Smith, to thank our individual prosecutors for how they've handled the case. That means more than anything. When you see the smile on a person's face after a jury comes back guilty, that their family can bring closure, there's nothing that beats that.
Thank you. Commissioner Ha?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jim. Your revenues did go up as well, too, so thank you for that.
Well, there's another reason why our revenues went up is because I think something's in the hands of the Finance Department now in the Treasurer's Office.
Well, I just wanted to mention, we had a very lengthy discussion at our pre-budget meeting. If you look at the sheets that Crystal has put together and distributed, if you take FICA, Medicare, pension, retiree health care, employee health, dental, and life insurance, and workman's comp, it comes to roughly 1/3 of every budget that we've looked at to date. Just keep that in mind when we start looking at the budget in its entirety. And for the prosecutor, it's $3.4 million out of $12.4. I mean, those are huge amounts of money. And It was very eloquently explained to us by Andrew and Steve during our pre-budget meeting. So just note. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And all I was going to say is, and we've been saying this to everybody, and that is indicating the short staffing. You know, as you know, we did the we did the compensation study. Yep. We're adjusting wages based on that. I said going into, before we ever did the study, I said, everybody was saying at the time we lost so many employees during the downturn, we're short-staffed, we're short-staffed. I said, there is no way mathematically this county can adjust the wages and provide the employees that everybody said they're short. It's not possible. So I don't think there are any new positions in this budget. Are there? Is there? Unless they're grant funded, no new positions, and we still are going into the fund equity for what we have in front of us right now. So we're at the point where it's just a mathematical impossibility to do everything that that is required to service our residents the way that we should be. So I just wanted to point that out. Commissioner Leonetti.
And I was going to say, Commissioner, if I may respond. I mean, Finance, we didn't come asking for a lot from Finance, and we understood the needs, and we understood the message going in that there weren't going to be additional personnel hired. The fact that I would love to stand up here additional, we didn't even ask for additional. We know the situation the county's in, and we're trying our best to save money, hence why we went out and got the grant that enabled us to, without any cost to the county, to hire 5.5 more additional people in our victims' rights unit. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, commend you for getting grants. We love grants up here. Joe Romano will tell you that. So that's good with regard to that for both the victims and the department. Congratulations. Second of all, as a consumer of the discovery requests, you know, you should be commended for that. A lot of commissioners might not know how this works, but when Eric Smith became prosecutor, he would then begin the process of emailing discovery to attorneys on the other end. And that saved a tremendous amount of money because you used to have to come up to the office and you get stacks of paper for your discovery. His office has implemented an email policy now, so most of this stuff is digitized and scanned. So that saves a tremendous amount of money on paper. And as Jim here said, I commend you too for not looking for another prosecutor or not looking for another investigator, but for actually getting somebody in staff to do these things. It is very important in the legal world to have discovery, and their office has always been very good at providing it. But as he says, you get overwhelmed. I mean, when you have an embezzlement case, I assume that's what it is, where you've got all these banker boxes full of documents that you have to prove your case, and the defense attorney needs those documents in the course of defending his client. It takes a tremendous amount of work to go through all those things and scan them. So you should be commended for looking for staff. I think we appreciate our staff here. I know we do. And so thank you.
Thank you,
All right.
Commissioner.
You're welcome.
And as far as revenue with that discovery, as you know, unfortunately, court-appointed counsel, that has to be provided for free. We can only charge retained counsel for discovery.
Okay, let me first get a motion to receive and file. Moved by Gillette, supported by Ha. Commissioner Myjack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for coming here. So I'm going to just ask some questions. They are political. We are a political body. You know, we are a budget body, but politics does come up here. And this is either to Langtree or to Schmieg. I'm looking here in D15. Expenditure by service, the local drug forfeiture fund. So the first question I have, maybe to Steve, would be, is that line item there the fund that we wanted to do the audit on, or no?
No, that first fund on D14, if I can address that.
I have a D15.
Oh, you have D15.
Yeah, he's on the,
okay.
He's on the local one.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yes, that's the one that was the audit. Yes, on D15.
On D15, can you explain to me, please, the numbers here? So the audited budget for 2018 is $189,000. And can you just go over those numbers for me, what they mean and the amounts?
Yeah, well, the amounts are self-explanatory, Commissioner.
Okay.
The local drug forfeiture for the actual in 2018, $189,266. Those were forfeiture funds that came in as a result of drug prosecutions.
Okay.
And as you can probably anticipate, going forward from there, with the legislation being passed by Mr. Lucido, that with the new parameters on those are going to dry up quickly. The second fund with the vehicle forfeiture were the drunk driving funds.
Mm-hmm.
That was the balance of $302,085.
Okay. So, for example, the $189,000, that money was spent to local municipalities.
The local drug forfeiture fund, as it stands, the local drug forfeiture fund was a 10% service fee that was collected by the prosecutor's office for drug prosecutions where local law enforcement agencies seized. They would seize the entire assets and in turn pay us back 10% of the proceeds for that. That's what that involves.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioners, I don't have any other speakers. Please vote. Okay, the motion passes 11-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners. Have a good day.
Okay, community mental health. Hi, Dave. Let's get a motion to receive and file. Moved by Kraft, supported by Ha. Hello.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for this, my first opportunity to present the budget. The community mental health currently has over 450 staff. We have 7 locations. We have served last fiscal year, data still coming in, almost 17,000 unique members of our community, providing over 1.7 million units of service. So that's considerable. I would like to take this opportunity to thank this body as well as my CMH board. And we've had the opportunity this year to work closer with the county's finance department, sitting behind me. And we're getting a lot of help, getting more consistent numbers and tracking data between ourselves and the county. We also are bringing in, as has come up, outside consultant services to help us with the financial reporting as well. The budget you have, I'll give you a heads up. We do expect to present an amendment in the future, but it's on the positive side. After we completed the budget that you have, the Medicaid capitation rates for fiscal year 1920 came out, and they were on the positive side for Macomb County. Early projections are about $18 million in additional funding for fiscal year 1920. We start October 1st. Yeah, 19 and 20. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. It's, yeah, like going way back in time. Some of that is accounted. There was the Children's Waiver Program was formerly a direct bill fee-for-service program. So anything we provided underneath that, we billed the state directly and they reimbursed us. They put that into our capitation payment, which will account for some of that $18 million increase. Overall, Governor Whitmer put over $200 million into the CMH system, acknowledging the historical underfunding of our community mental health system in Michigan, specifically as well the autism services. There was not a sufficient accounting for the increase in the prevalence and the number of people seeking those services. So that will be in the future. As to what you have in front of you, oh, and I also have a PowerPoint that I will email over. It gives, it's from the Community Mental Health Association of Michigan's presentation to the Michigan's House of Representatives, and it was provided a nice summary of community mental health services in general, and then I've added some information specific to Macomb County. But again, on your budget, primarily we are Medicaid funded, which comes down through our PIHP contract from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. We are also a downstream contractor with 5 integrated care organizations, also known as Medicare Advantage plans. That's Aetna, AmeriHealth, Michigan Complete, HAP, and Molina. Happy to report we did finally reach a settlement with Molina. They had some monies that were owed to us for about 2 fiscal years back. So that money has come through. That's under the My Health Link program, which is for people in our system who have Medicare and Medicaid. Our Medicaid capitation payments for the fiscal year 17 and 18 were about $159.7 million. That's just the Medicaid part. And I do have Randy here to speak to any questions about the substance use services. I'll skip through most of that. I don't know. I'll touch on some of the changes that we have planned for the current fiscal year, which started October 1st. Again, we need to, couple of things became obvious when I started. The financial projections, which I'm sure you will agree with me, need to get a little bit better. That is data dependent. So instead of looking behind us, we need to be able to look forward. We do have the ability to look forward and project our spending based on the services that we have in our data system that are authorized in pretty much on a 6-month chunk of time. So we do have a data vendor, data analytics, and we're getting much better every month on our data reporting and tracking. We're looking at, we want to be able to provide more services to more people. The new funding model from the state will take into account a more recent 6-month period of time. So if we're able to provide more services to more people, it will cost more money, but their funding model should take that into account, and very shortly we should see the results of that additional funding. We also do not want to, provide less services to fewer people, even though our revenue was cut severely from the state, because then our future funding will just be that much less. So we do need to make sure we're meeting the needs of our county and seeing more people. So with that, we're looking at our front door services. We had a glitch with AT&T, our telephone vendor, recently, and it coincided with our recent marketing campaign for the substance use services. So we were advertising a phone number to the public that was not being answered in a timely fashion because our phone system was down. So we're building in those redundancies. I received our new phone on my desk. We'll be switching it over shortly. That new phone system will give us greater tracking abilities so we can time the timeliness of calls in our call center. And when we're talking about reduction of paper, we can move to the electronic faxes, which will allow us to email a fax directly in our system, upload a fax document into somebody's medical record, and we won't have to print those off and copy all of those faxes that can be rather large. So we're working on that. New utilization management software, which should help control cost. Randy, like I said, from substance use, we are the recipient of a $3.5 million for an opioid health home. We'd be the second county in the state to receive those funds. So it's a pilot and we'll be starting. We're also the first county in Michigan to pilot it's called the Open Beds software, which will be tracking the inpatient hospital bed availability for our people who are in crisis. So we are the point person statewide for that. And I could go on, but if there's any questions.
Yes, there are. Commissioner Ha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You made the comment, and thank you for your presentation, that funding is data generated. I would also add an addendum to that. It's also Lansing generated, whether that's by data or whatever mechanism being used.
They massage it a little bit before, yes.
Well, if you want to say a little bit, I'll take exception with that. They've been whacking it since 2010. And it looks like that's going to continue on. But I just have a hypothetical that was brought to my attention. On a specific line item in your budget, use the doorbell, or let's pick any one. If you see at some point that entire line item for, we'll use doorbell, is not completely being utilized, do you have the discretion of moving whatever that amount is to other places that have equal or greater need within your budget, or does that money go back to the general fund?
That's a very good question. The answer is yes. Sometimes we can move dollars between fund between areas. But the general fund is very restricted at the state level. So if I have a surplus in general fund at the end of the year and I've lost money on the Medicaid side, I have to return those general fund dollars and try to cover the Medicaid loss from other sources.
You have to return the general fund dollars to whom?
To Lansing.
They're going to get you either way, aren't they? They're going to cut you or they're going to get it back.
I did have a conversation with John Duvendek from the department, and he told me that the department does have the discretion, their sole discretion up to them, to allow us to use general fund to cover losses in other areas. But that would be kind of case by case and only with their approval.
So the motivation for you is to spend every dollar in every line item you have so you don't have to get anything back.
On the non-general funds, yes. And on the general fund side as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So I'm a little bit confused. You have personnel that's negotiated by the county?
They're employed by the county?
Their salaries are negotiated by the county?
Yes.
So, and you have union personnel?
Yes.
Okay, and we did that compensation study, and most people, generally speaking, moved up. Not everybody. So I'm looking at I didn't see the number of personnel change, but I'm looking at your personnel, and it's going from 26,710 down to 25, and then 26. It's really almost staying stagnant. And so I'm confused about that. And then you actually do have an increase in fund balance, which also I was a little surprised to see. You had an increase, you have a recommended increase of 432,000 and then 400 next year and 389 the year after. I'm on E4.
We are expecting to be able to contribute to our internal service fund, the ISF, for last fiscal year and for the current fiscal year that started in October, based on all of our projections and the changes we put in place. Your question about personnel costs?
Yes, Steve, maybe. I don't understand it. I looked at the number of positions and they didn't change, and I'm looking at the salary and it went down.
I need to follow
up. Am I in the twilight zone?
No, you're not, Commissioner. I need to talk with folks at mental health because
it's not.
They apply a turnover factor. You know how we apply a turnover factor? They do their own turnover factor because they have a large number of vacancies. So I don't know if this is the case. They may have a larger turnover factor built into the 20
but
budget.
It would still be built in.
But they might have, if they had increases because of compensation and classification, and then they applied a larger turnover factor. And again, I don't know.
Would you take a look at that? Because it doesn't seem.
Right. I would agree with you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown.
Thank you. Your area's been hit with the dramatic budget cuts from Lansing, but it appears that you're weathered the storm and you're going to carry on. But my question is, what has been cut? What have you had to reduce? Have you had to eliminate to affect this more stable outlook?
I'm lucky enough that happened before I started, but they were severe and significant service reductions. Primarily, the service is called community living support, which is paid staff in the person's home to help them remain in the community for as long as possible. That and the respite service, which is designed to give the primary caregiver, the parent typically, a break from caring for their child who has some significant, or whatever level of care needs. And those services were the two that were hit the most.
Now, what was done in replace of them? So the care worker, like a shadow, basically a shadow person that goes with them in the community, that goes with them on job sites, goes with them shopping and things like that.
Right,
Allows
that-
them to stay in their home as opposed to being in an institution. What happens to them when their caregiver's not there? What are they doing?
The natural supports, the caregivers or parents, picked up a lot of the slack. Some people were able to get by with fewer services, but most of them, I'm aware of some people who were living in their own home and were able to do that with, say, 20 plus hours a day of paid staffing supports. And when these cuts, when the revenue cuts came in, they ended up having to move into a licensed facility, which is not the preferred model right now. We want everybody to be in the community as much as possible and outside of licensed settings or other institutions.
Is there a model that they're being not checked in every day, but maybe they're checked in once a week or checked on them from time to time, that just
Actually, when I first started, I met with the Provider Alliance of Macomb County, and there's a model called a monitoring room. The monitoring room gives you the economies of scale, so I could have 2 staff supporting a large number of people across a fairly wide geographic area. So on the business side, on dollars, it's more cost effective to have 6 people living in the same spot, and then I could have 2 staff on first shift, 2 staff on second, and 1 staff on midnights supporting those 6 people. If I broke them up and put 2 people each in 3 homes, the cost, skyrockets. But with the monitoring room, it's an intercom system, and some have gone to the actual camera system. But they're there and available. So I'm sitting in the monitoring room with 20 intercoms set up. And if you needed help, I could talk to you. If you needed help, I could talk to you. And then there's a person in the community who's traveling and checking on each of you per your plan. And then if you needed help, they can be redirected. Whoever's driving has all of your information in the car. They have a key to your front door. And it allows us to support people in the community with less staff. So they're working on a proposal, on a model, and doing that for us.
Well, it sounds making the best of the situation, and thank you.
It has a lot of advantages, and it's there for some people. It's another way to help people be more independent in the community instead of being dependent on paid staffing supports through the CMH.
Very good. A lot of creativity had been going on the last couple of years on all of this.
Yeah, we're trying.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. With that, do I have a receiving? Yeah. Okay, I'm on top of it. Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes 9-0. Thank you, Dave. Department recommendations, 2019 apportionment report, Director Smeagol.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Let me back up just 1 minute back to the mental health budget. And I was speaking briefly with the Chief Financial Officer, and mental health generally runs 60 to 70 vacant positions. And she's indicating to me that a lot of their positions were red circled under the compensation and classification study. So it's also possible that they budgeted those vacant positions at the lower rates. Okay. But we're going to speak tomorrow morning, so we're going to clarify it all, but that's a possibility as well.
Okay, as long as you guys are looking into it, that's fine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So, Commissioners, before you have the 2009 apportionment report. This is a report that we present to you every year that you are required by state law to approve. And essentially, it is a compilation of all the taxable values and the millage rates for every community in the county and every school district. spells out all the various millage rates as I just indicated. And I think the important takeaway from the report is that, as Kristen Seeloff indicated to you earlier in the year with the equalization report, and I've indicated to you as well, tax values in the county increased almost 5%, just shy of 5% this year. About 4.2% effect on the actual tax collections after the Headley rollback. So that's good news. And again, we've budgeted a 3.5% increase for next year. So I really don't have much to say about this report. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but there's a lot of information in here about tax rates.
Okay, thank you. Let me get a motion to move to full board. Moved by Sauger, supported by Gillette. Commissioner Duge.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Steve, I don't know if you have an answer or not today, but on page 15 of the report, or 67 of this booklet, you've got TIFA, DDAs, and CIA taxes captured. There are base years for TIFA in 2018. I was under the impression that TIFAs were sunset in 2010.
I will look into that.
Can you please let me know on that, because something doesn't sound right on it. And I'd appreciate the heads up or information on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I don't have any other speakers. Please vote. Motion passes 9-0. New business, commissioners, remember we're taking a photo after the meeting, so don't take off. There aren't a whole lot of us left.
Hey, I got a question, Madam Chair. The meeting on Monday, that just kind of came up this week with Senator Lucido. Do you have any information on what that's regarding? Anybody? Okay.
No.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Kraft.
If I may. Senator Lucido has introduced a bill, or wants to introduce a bill up to change Act 51, and he wants to come in and talk about it. So Chair Smith did a special board meeting, so he could come in and discuss that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other new business?
Filing statements, did you, everybody, where they have their filing statements?
Yeah, just a reminder to everybody, Friday, 2 days from now, finance statements are due. So with that, we'll close new business, public participation. Does anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Motion to adjourn by Duge, supported by Gillette. Please vote. And we're adjourned.
Thank you.